to Be So Creative Tips and Tricks at 2 on Tuesday. I'm Sandy. You got me one more time. And today we are going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk a lot about bias binding. But first, some announcements. Saturday, we are going to have a Focus on Your Pet Day. We have these awesome little dog collars and some really snazzy catnip little pouches for you guys to come into the store and make while you're here. Have everybody wash your hands as normal, and then you'll move from station to station and be able to put together some adorable little things for your pets. We would so love to see you. Saturday, 10 to 2. Thursday, before Saturday, back up a couple of days, we're going to have the final installment of our ruler quilting demonstration class with Stephanie for this cycle. We'll pick up again a new cycle starting in March and a whole new set of rulers. But if you've been signed up, then this will be the last week of that class, and then we'll pick things up again in March. All right? For questions, call the shop, check the web page, let us know. Okay? But for now, I want to talk to you about bias. Okay, first of all, we're going to take a moment and we're going to understand what grain is. Fabric is woven. Well, woven fabric has along the edge what we call the selvage. And that means we've got the warp threads that are running this way. And my hand's in the way. Let's see if I can do it left-handed. Ha, crooked warp. Okay. And then we have the weft threads that run this direction. Okay? When we use a ruler or otherwise fold our fabric diagonal this direction, that is bias. And what happens with those bias is each of these threads, when we cut on grain or across grain, they lock into each other pretty well, and our fabric stays very, very stable. But when we come on bias, our fabric develops a flexibility about it, which is why, far it can zoom in. Let's see how close you can get to this stuff. Ooh, very, very close. See that? I need some lotion. But also, look at that really awesome when I fold it like this, I make those little joints really, really vulnerable. And so if I were to fold them like that, and then I were to rub back and forth across them, they're going to wear out faster than if I'm working on this bias direction. Back up just a little bit, Becky. Perfect. Okay, so we're on the bias right here, and I just want to show you how much more flexibility we have. See how it's almost like it's stretching. And that's because instead of locking into 90 degrees, it lets us move a little bit. It also helps with the wear and tear of it, because rather than, let's come back to this picture, rather than the wear force happening just on this one fiber right here, and break those fibers, it's got to come across these joints. And across the joints, there's more fiber and more resilience built in there. So your bias binding is going to last longer, wear harder, and might actually grow up with the kid without having the binding fall off, which is why it's my favorite go-to choice. So let's go ahead and back up so you can see my whole piece of fabric right here. I want to show you today how to build continuous bias binding. I know that there's a lot of information on the internet that always tells you to cut it square, meaning if it's 10 inches by 10 inches. I say, blah, why waste the fabric? I want to use every inch of my fabric. I love it a lot. That's why I bought it, and that's why I brought it home. So what I want to show you today is using this rectangular piece, which is about a fat quarter, how to create the bias binding without losing any of the extra materials. I'm going to flip it over so it's a little easier for you to see. And we're going to start over here with the selvage edge. The selvage is where we have a different kind of weaving that reinforces it. So these little dots, there we go. Those little dots are built, are in the fabric because on the big looms, they're actually little hooks that hold the fabric taut while it's being woven. And as the weaving happens, the next set of hooks goes into it. We want to remove it. It also gives us a really nice place to start our clean cut. So I'm going to just eyeball a straight edge here. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Now, we're going to flip it over. Are we okay? Keep going? Okay. We're learning so many new technical things on this side of it. You guys should be so proud of us. Our brains are just getting so wrinkly with all of the new things we're learning. Okay, we're going to do a clean cut. Notice up here, I'm off the edge, so I need to scoot it down. Becky, come and have everybody see this little line. Can we do that? Yeah. All right. So what I want to make sure is that this is my cut that I just made, and I want to give it, okay, for you guys, because of the angle of, there we go. Okay, so I want to make sure that it lines up like that all the way across. Okay, so go ahead and zoom back out again. You're going to see me adjust the ruler, but that's because the angle of the camera is a little bit slantwise. So this is the real. Okay, I'm sitting down, so this feels a little more awkward, but I'm going to roll to my finger, walk forward, roll to my finger, walk forward, all the way off the edge. Okay, so now I have my 90 degrees here. So I'm going to rotate 90 degrees. I'm going to use that cut I just made, and I'm going to give myself another clean cut. And I did not use proper hand motions. You guys should all wag your fingers at me. Rotate 90 degrees. And we're going to clean cut again. What you should be noticing is that I'm not really measuring each of these sides. The part that's most important to me is that everything is lining up 90 degrees. And walk, and walk. So now all my corners are a good clean 90 degrees. This is when I'm ready to begin cutting my bias, and I'm not going to lose any fabric to needing to cut it off to make it a square, because if I find my square here, I lose all of these inches in my bias, and I don't need to. So our next step is to find the 45-degree line on our ruler. So mine right here is actually marked with the number 45. You also will notice that it's going from corner to corner. So there we go. From the point to the point. And I'm going to bring that line down onto the bottom edge of my fabric. Back up just a little bit again, Becky, so we can see over here. There we go. Okay, so you see how this is trying to lift up? I should have pulled out the best press and laid that down really well so that it's not doing that. But instead, for the sake of time today, we're going to flip it around, and I'm going to use over here where it is laying down. You guys, please take a minute and make sure that everything is laid up, is ironed well. Okay, I want everybody to see this corner down here. Excellent. What I'm trying to do is I want my ruler to line up with the barest edge right down in here and on my 45. So my 45-degree line is on the edge of my fabric. And showing the number. Okay, go ahead and show the number. The number is here. Okay, so we're on our 45-degree line, and we're coming all the way down to that point. And again, it looks like I'm not quite lined up, but that's because the camera is like slicing underneath, like its vision is slicing underneath the edge of the ruler. Okay? Notice that up here, I think you'll have to pan out. So up, there we go, yes. Up here, I'm not actually on the fabric. So we're just gonna, let me scoot over here. Okay, yep. There we go. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna draw, cut my line so far, scoop my finger, and then I'm just gonna, okay, so then I'm just gonna open this up. Sorry guys, you get familiar with my sweatshirt. Okay, then I can slide my ruler up a little bit further. I'm gonna line, so back up again, Becky, so we can see the bigger. Okay, so now I've lined my ruler up along my cut, and that will allow me to continue all the way up. And now I'm loose. Okay, so pan out big so we can see these whole pieces. Once we're at this point, we have this 45-degree cut, which is on bias. We have this one that is on grain, this one that's a cross grain, this one that's on grain, and this one that's a cross grain. This guy gets the number 1 on it. Okay? And over here, we get a number 1 over here as well. Down here, a number 2. And I just do the Roman numeral 2 because I find that's easier to write. And then we're going to jump up straight across. So back out again so that we can see the jump. Right, so here's our 2. This is also a 2, but I'm not going to need to label that. I do need to label this one. Okay, that's my 2. Now, 1 and 1 are again our straight and across. So I'm going to flip this over so that I have right sides up. And I'm going to bring 1 over to 1. And do you see this pennant shape that it makes? You know, those ancient medieval flags that you hold on the day of jousting? Notice we have that pennant shape. One edge is longer than the other, which is fine because we have this extra extension under here. Okay? So let me show you that again one more time. Here is 1 and 1. There's 2 and 2. 1 and 1 come together over here. They make a pennant shape. We're going to flip this way, and we're going to look at this nice little square that we've got going on over here. And we're going to line things up, okay? 1/4 inch seam allowance right across there. Here we go, magic of television. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Once we have sewn that 1/4 inch right there, we're going to press it open. And I always press my seam allowances the same direction. I know that there are lots of other people who like to press this seam open, like so. I say, whatever floats your boat. Go ahead and do whichever direction, because this is going to be tucked inside the binding. It's not going to be a stress point, so whichever way makes you happier, and if you feel like you've got less bulk to go ahead and lay it flat, go ahead and do that. So pressed one direction. Then let's review. Here is 1 and 1, which I did not write on this guy. Okay, so there's 1 and 1. Here is 2, and here is 2. 2 and 2, 1 and 1. We need to do some marking. In order to do some marking, I want to talk a little bit about what our marking options are. So I brought a whole pile of things because everybody's going to have their favorite. Let's start with the classic. Water erasable. Is it better if I just leave it? Okay, water erasable Mark Be Gone blue pen. Works on just about anything. Gives you a pretty heavy line, so if you're doing something really fine, it's not going to be your favorite friend, but for what we're doing, that one is going to work just fine. You are going to have to get it wet in order to remove it, which is where one of these fun little guys comes into play, where you can just fill the pen with water, and now, like an eraser, you can pull that guy right off. So we have both of those in the store. We also have, maybe you don't, oh, let's come back here for this second. This little guy is another version of the blue marker. It just has a nicer cap and snaps on a little tighter. I don't know about you, but there have been occasions when I've been in my drawer and I found that this guy, I didn't get the cap all the way on and I lost what I needed. Here is an erasable marker. This one you're going to write on to your fabric with, but you don't have to erase it with the water. It's just going to go away. Side note, if you're going to come back to this project weeks later, this is not your friend. You're going to need something different. Or you can do both. Yay, both and. In this case, we have our water erasable and our air erasable. But let's say you're working on a very, very dark fabric. Those are not going to be your friends. This one is going to be a much nicer companion. These are our extra fine tip. It works just like a mechanical pencil. I really do love these guys. It gives you a nice, crisp, clean line, and it gives you that white on the dark background. And it's just going to be, all of a sudden I can't remember how, this one you don't worry about, you leave it in. It'll wash out when you wash the quilt. And these guys, I just brought this one is, let me show you. Okay, so right in here, there's a little tiny, tiny wheel. There, you can just see the teeth of it. And that is going to be, it rolls through the chalk and onto the fabric, leaving a really fine chalk line. It is a chalk line. It will dust off. So again, it's not going to be your favorite friend for if you're going to try to line everything out and then wait weeks and then come back to it. But you'll notice what I have here is that it's both in white and in gray. We have had some people report that the gray is really, really kind of overwhelming dark, but one of the great tips that I learned from Stephanie here at the shop really early on is that she saves her first white, like when she's used it up, she'll save this guy and put about a quarter of this one into her white and then grab another white refill and make a lighter gray out of it. And she's had a lot of really great success with that one. So don't be afraid to mix your quote black and white in order to get a softer gray. So now that we have discussed marking, let me scoot these things out of the way for a second. We're going to come back to what you're marking. So quick review. We have sewn 1 and 1 together. 2 is here and 2 is here. This is our stretchy bias edge. If I yank on it now, I can get those fibers to loosen up, but I might not be able to get them back again. So I'm going to treat this edge gently. And I'm going to use my ruler going along this edge. And I'm going to mark every 2.5 inches or however far it is that you decide, however wide your bias is going to be. Becky, let's pan out one more time. There is one more shape I want you guys to pay attention to. Can we get the whole thing? There we go, there we go. Okay, do you see our big rhombus shape? This is the right shape. So our pennant goes to rhombus. If you have a different shape, you're in the wrong place, something else happened, call the shop. Let me see if I can help you figure it out. Okay, 2.5 inches this way. Then I'm going to lay it down, and I'm going to draw my 2.5 inches again. So notice that I slid the ruler down so that I'm on the edge as much as I can be. And this is just a regular pen, and I'm using it so that you can actually see the lines on the camera. And then I'm going to scoot it over and shift it down, and we're going to do another 2.5. Okay. Oh, this is my Frisian pen. Ha! You guys, this is the pen that disappears with heat. So this actually is one of the ones that you can also use. It's very popular in the shop around here. Okay. And you'll notice that I'm just driving right over the top of that seam with my mark. Okay. And you'll notice that I don't have enough to do a whole extra strip in here, which is fine. That's really, really normal for things to be off. And when you use a larger piece, so like I said, this is about a fat quarter size, but if you were to use like a half yard or something larger, then this piece has a tendency to kind of be a little bit skewed because it's hard for us as humans to keep this exactly straight all the way across. The other thing I want you to notice is that I drew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on 2 and up on 2. So there's my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And what that allows me to do is know where this point is going to intersect with its other 2 buddy. So back out, and let me show you this. We're going to take this whole piece and we're going to flip it so that we're looking at the right side. Right here is the seam, and I think of it as the house where 1 and 1 live. The house where 1 and 1 live, 2 wants to come and visit. So there's my number 2. Number 2 wants to come visit the house. I've made a triangle. This is my other number 2. It wants to visit at the house too, also. Okay? Notice that we've got our lines that are starting to line up. Okay? So back it up one more time. Oh, go ahead. Notice the lines. Okay? I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, let's do it one more time. Here, back it up big so we can see the whole. Yes. Here is where 1 and 1 live. 2 comes to visit 1, and then from the bottom, 2 comes to visit 1. At this point, if we sew them so that they're lined up, we will create onion rings. What we want is a corkscrew. So I want this to line up with this one. So I'm going to shift the whole thing down. Notice how it starts to pull and it gets weird and it doesn't want to do that. That's because a corkscrew shape doesn't like to sit flat. It means we're doing it right. If it's sitting too flat, it's wrong. So I'm going to come in at this point. Becky, go ahead and, there we go. So right where my lines intersect, I'm going to pin right there. I'm going to pick this guy up and I'm going to pin right through there. Okay, now back up again so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to line my seam allowances up, and notice I can pivot my pin. I want to see if I can get it as perpendicular as possible, and then I'm going to secure it. Then I pick up my next one, and I put my pin through, and I check on the back side. And I have to shift it around a little bit till I'm actually at the intersection. That one's kind of a messy one for you guys to see because my 2 is written in the middle of it. Make my pin perpendicular and work my way along. And I will do that all the way down. So into my seam allowance, into my seam allowance and intersection, Okay. And last one, right here and right here. Okay, again, notice how it can't sit flat. See that lumpy mess? That's exactly what it's supposed to do. If you can make it sit flat, you've done something wrong. Go back and make sure that 2 and 2 are coming and that you've shifted it just a little bit. Okay, hold on 1 second while I bring the sewing machine over. Okay, and we're just going to sew that seam. Notice that, again, I can't get it to lay straight. That's right. Good job. You're doing it right. Okay. And we're just going to sew that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, see it's trying to pull around? So shift everything. You only need it to be straight, just in front of you a few inches. Okay, and see underneath, I'm about to lose, like I'm almost out. Okay, let's get the machine out of the way. And let's bring over our pressing mat. Okay, 1 and 1. So back up, so there it is, 1 and 1. And now I can get it to lay flat. So if there's 1 and 1, let's go this way so you can see my 1 better. Where is 2 and 2? If I just keep rolling it around, I'll find it. Because now, go ahead and back up so we can see this whole big flat thing. We've got our whole big flat thing. Okay? And notice how the edges are offset. That's what actually allows us to corkscrew. Okay, we're going to, in this case, I'll just press it open for demonstration. I normally would just press it to the side. First, I roll my fingers along here so that we get the fabric to lay, so it kind of holds itself. Okay. I'm just gonna.
Lines are gonna disappear.
Oh, my lines are gonna disappear. Thank you, Becky. Okay, so I'm going to. Sorry, you guys don't get to see really. I'm gonna dodge my lines because I want them to stay. And really. Okay, now we're going to roll around until we can find our first pickup. I want you to notice how this one is jogged in. Do you see? Like it is not a full width. But that was that one that was too short in the first place. So we're going to be fine. We're just going to start cutting here. And essentially, right now, we're cutting off that first one that was too short. And I can hear you say, but Sandy, why didn't we cut it off before? And the answer is there have been a few times that I have built it and gotten to the point where I realized I shifted something wrong or I measured something wrong, and I've been really, really grateful to have that back. So given that I'm going to need to cut it off anyway, I choose to leave the cutting till later so that if I need it in the in-between, I have it. Okay, so we're going to look at this little line right here and see how those guys don't exactly line up with each other. I'm just going to split the difference right between them and keep going. Okay, this is the part where we are now, this is what's too little. And so this is our real 2.5 inch binding. And as I continue to cut around and around and around we go, you see, I'm just cutting on this same line, and it feels like I ought to be getting to the end, but I just get to keep turning. If you are doing a really big thing, say, I don't know, for some reason you wanted a whole square yard turned into bias binding, there's no reason why, if you've got, that you can use a rotary cutter if you make sure that you put the mat between the layers. Let's say it again. If you're going to use a rotary cutter to cut these guys, you have to have a mat that goes in between. Because if you just lay it down and try to cut across, you are going to have spaghetti instead of bias binding. Okay, I won't make you watch the whole way through. So Becky, go ahead and let's back up. But you can see I'm essentially unwinding my bias off of my tube. Lots of people will fold and press. Don't do that. No, no, no. But why? Because this is not exactly where we're going to need our fold. We're actually going to have to fold the fabric over. And as we fold the fabric over, we use some of the fabric on the inside. Think about the runners on the track. So it's got to be a seam, and then it folds back over again, and that's how we create binding. That's a lot of loops around the track. And so if we allow it to find its own press point as we're working it around the quilt, we will get a much cleaner line than if we press it and give this hard crease, because then we have to fight with the hard crease. So one more time I'm going to show you. Back up, Becky. Step number 1, we square our corners. Okay? Step number 1, square the corners all the way around. Step number 2, 45 degrees. Step number 3, 1 and 1, 2 and 2. Step number 4, 1 and 1 get together to make a pennant shape. 5, we sew the edge. Once the edge is sewn, we're going to use our ruler on the stretchy edge, and we're going to make our marks all the way across. We're going to do a 1/4 inch on the bottom and a 1/4 inch on the top. We're going to press it, and then 1 and 1 live in their house, and 2 from the top comes down to visit, and 2 from the bottom comes up to visit. Then we shift, make everything lumpy, sew our seam, press, and unwind. Next time, we'll talk a little bit more about how to actually get the binding on the quilt, and we'll even do a piped flange binding.
And would you re-mention what's happening Saturday?
Oh, and Saturday, again, we are going to have some fun with our pets. We're going to have an opportunity here in the store for any of you who are interested to come on down and create a dog collar, an adorable little sewn dog collar, and it's going to cost you $0. Why? Because we love you. We love your pets. You love your pets. It's just going to be so fun. Just come see us.
Where is some of the money going?
And, oh, that's right. Where is some of the money going? Sharon, it's your sister, but I forgot hers official.
2 Hearts, 4 Paws.
2 Hearts, 4 Paws Animal Rescue. So anything that's purchased in the store on Saturday, 10% is going to be donated to 2 Hearts, 4 Paws. And if you happen to have a cat and you're like, I don't want a dog collar for my cat, well, we will have some catnip sachets. So come down, spend some money so that it can be donated to the 2 Hearts, 4 Paws. Check out our Facebook page for some more information on that awesome organization. And also, come and make a free craft with us, because we love you guys. Come see us. We'll see you next time. Bye.